welcome back to the Justice and Faith Show. It has been a hot minute since we've done one. We missed a week. Last week we were supposed to upload one, and we did not. It was Easter, his birthday, everything kind of got away from us, but...
My birthday's not on Easter.
No, that was just a bunch of the things that happened.
Yes.
But moving forward, we are trying to get back into a weekly schedule, so... We might go from bi-weekly to weekly coming up here soon. So you'll be getting more content from us very shortly, hopefully. But anyway, we are excited to be back. And we are talking about the business of marriage today. And so everything we're talking about is strictly from a marriage viewpoint. So yeah.
Not totally, because it starts off with dating. So, but... I guess you can say a lot of people date so they can see, about their future partners and things of that nature. So, all right. So we want to explain the hierarchy. So, the hierarchy within our household is God, me, the husband, Faith, and then Arabella currently, because she's the only child we have, right? So when we're thinking about businesses, most people who understand organizational structure understand that there's typically an owner or, typically an owner, right? So God will be the owner. There's a CEO, the chief executive officer. That would be me, the husband. A chief operating officer. That would be the COO. That would be Faith. And then for the sake of this, Arabella is a trainee. And we have to understand that our children are trainees because we're training them to do the same thing in our households. Even if you're not a Christian or a person who follows these principles, it still maintains.
Right. You're still training them to be someone else's wife or husband or whatever the case may be someday.
It'll train them for the potential of it. Yeah. Because everybody's not going to get married. It's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. And everybody's not going to necessarily want to. But if you do, you need to understand some things. So in business, understanding that the highest rankings of business are CEO and COO. So you have to understand very much what the implications is for those particular individual. So God owns it, right? So the owner is the owner, and everybody is put in place because the business needs to sustain. So our marriage is our business. We need to sustain. So I'm the executor. I'm the one who executes the vision, the mission, the values. That's my job. Faith's job is more so she has to make sure that the model which is approved continues to go on track. So one of those things is being in a Christian household. The Bible, biblical principles, scriptures, things like that, making sure that our family's on the up and up. Of course, I can do that. Of course, I'm executing these things as well. But if she sees me kind of veering off, then she comes in and her role is a little bit more direct because I have a lot of larger things looming that I have to take care of and that I'm thinking about where she doesn't. Mm-hmm. Vice versa. And alternately, she has certain things that she has to take care of that I'm not necessarily thinking of. And that it's better for her to execute than me. And then conversely, Arabella being a trainee, she watches how we navigate. And honestly, her training is going to come more from Faith as the COO because Arabella will never be a CEO.
Right.
That's where a lot of people will have a problem. Why can't she be a CEO? The familiar structure, historically, in the animal kingdom, pretty much everywhere, there's a reason why we have come from patriarchal societies. The man has always been at the top, and there's a reason for that. Protect and provide. Now, even though women are more than capable of provisions, more than capable of protecting themselves, if you have the choice to not do those things, then you likely would choose to not.
Right. And then also, this is, again, in a marriage. And in a marriage, that's the way it's supposed to be. Man, wife, kids. So when you're looking at it that way, you kind of have to look at it like, okay, I am here to help him. I'm here to be what he needs me to be. He is the CEO. He has to keep everything going. And he has all of the overall stuff. Sometimes he might not see some of the day-to-day things, some of the smaller things, even though he's not a good example because he does. But
I'm a more hands-on CEO.
Yes. But in general, some of the smaller things, some of the more because you've said it before, baby. You've said if you know that I can take care of something, you forget about it. because you're like, okay, she's taking care of it. I don't need to think about that, so I can think about this other thing that I know she's not.
I tend to not I don't forget about it, but I tend to not focus on it, especially if I've seen you've proven to take care of it. Because it's usually something smaller that I don't need, like the hands off. I can be hands off now because you take on that role. But you can't take on a role until you understand it.
Right.
That's when we go back to the whole trainee part.
Right.
Okay. So
because I was once a trainee.
And this is important. Now, as far as being a CEO and being a husband, we didn't talk about that very well. But if I grew up in a 2-person household, my dad was around and stuff, he would be training me, or he should be the example that I see to be a CEO. If he had a daughter, if I had a sister, then she would be watching our mother and ways to learn to be the COO. And now we talked about this. It was funny because every business is not the same. So we talked about like resumes and cover letters and things like that.
Yeah. Because you have to, so if you're really trying to apply for a position at a job, you're going to have a resume, you're going to go through interviews, you're going to do all of that. And we actually were able to find some correlation. So like resumes, for instance, like it's not something that we physically write down, but especially in today's day and age with dating sites and how people tend to meet online and through texting and different things like that, you're going through all of the basic information
and the profiles.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do lists.
Like, this is what I have to offer. These are the things I bring to the table. This is why you should pick me above the other applicants that you might have.
But a lot of that is typically framed in what their likes.
Right.
But you have, so I remember when I was younger, I remember somebody said something I read somewhere, like, list all the traits you want in a woman. So as a young man, I did it. I wrote everything out that I wanted. And then I did it later in life. And I'm pretty sure other people have done that too. So you have these lists. Comparably, so if you have a resume, and I was telling Faith, I was like, if you have a resume, right, before, this is where the dating comes in, before we're married, I'm the CEO. I don't have, my company is not up and running, it's not successful, it's not thriving, right? But I'm still the CEO, and I'm looking for the COO so I can get the company up and ready and thriving. So I have to pick the right person for my company, for the company which I am in charge of. You can't just pick any old body. So 5 women come. I'm looking at their resumes and they all look pretty decent, but I'm just like, who fits my business best? And I told Faith, like, upon looking at her resume, I could say, okay, it's a good resume, but this person actually fits my business better. And she said, oh. And I said, a lot of people don't understand that. So when you have if a man comes up to you and he's picking you, if he's choosing you, you have to understand, he's probably saw the resumes and just said, you know what, your resume speaks better to me and what I want and what I need.
Right.
At no point, though, would you then go out and say, well, let me see your resume? When you go on an interview, one of the things that you should always do is research the company in which you are applying for.
Yes. That's your way of going and doing kind of the same thing.
Exactly.
You're not making them go through the same type of interview, but you've done your research. You have a few questions that you ask when you go, like, what are the benefits? What's my salary going to be like? What are the hours?
And honestly, you wouldn't be applying for a position that you don't want in a company you don't want to work out unless you're desperate. And in this particular situation, we don't want to work in desperation because we're talking about for the rest of our lives or at least 30, 40, 50 years. And in theory, a lot of people these days don't stay married quite that long. Maybe the last generation or generation before that, you see people 35, 40 years and things like that. But once again, alternately, most of the young adults I know are people within my age range. They change jobs within every 2 years. And so we got once again, the business of marriage. And you think about it because what's the thing? I make this much now. I know this much is available. So I'm always looking for the next better thing. So when you look at that resume and you have 5 in front of you, you might say, these are all good. But you know what? I want to interview 5 more people because I can find better. And then you find better. And then you're like, oh my goodness. But still not everything I want. You keep going through this process. And what ends up happening is you lose good candidates. And that's both ways. So as the CEO, I'm tasked with saying, you know what? This fits my business now. I need to start growing now. As the person that's coming in, they have to understand this is the way the business works. You said something about the policies and procedures.
Yeah.
Like these are the policies and procedures. This is your benefits package. But these are the policies and procedures. If you're not okay with that, you don't have to accept the offer.
Right. Because when you're doing a resume, you put on there prior experience, You put on there your strengths and weaknesses. You put in there.
You don't typically put the interview.
But you do prior experience and whatnot. And sometimes, depending on what the prior experience is, it could be beneficial or it could not be beneficial, depending on what the person's looking for. Because if he wants a wife, but only a wife, and he knows he doesn't want to promote her to mother someday or whatever, like he's like, oh, you already are a mother? That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for just a wife, so you're overqualified or whatever.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one. Yeah. But if I'm like, you know what, I don't want somebody who's already been someone else's COO because you were on their plan, and maybe you weren't. Maybe you weren't even a COO. Maybe you were a trainee and then you didn't follow policy procedure. You were in the training program for COO, which is dating.
Yeah.
And then you just didn't make it for some reason, or you decided to quit, but now you have a trainee with you that you're bringing with you, and you were a prior COO, possibly, or at least a COO in training. Now I need you to get on my program. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't work for a lot of people. Both ways. As this actually what happened with us.
Yeah,
and it's just like
you might have bad habits from the previous relationship, or I guess in this case, the previous job position. You might have bad habits that you brought in from that.
It's not even the bad habits and the trauma. It's that most people's businesses in the business of marriage do not run the same.
Right.
So some people, they allow certain things to happen because it works for their marriage. So we can look at it and say, how, why, what? Doesn't matter if it works for them. Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, me and you, we were married before and we went through the process and you became the COO. However, when I looked at your credentials, I didn't understand what I really needed for my business to run and thrive.
Right.
So when I looked at your credentials, it was like, okay, whatever, you have the job. And then when you looked at what my company entailed, you didn't really look at it. You said, oh, he's offering me the job.
Yeah.
So we both went into it, and then after, then things happened, and then so the next time it's like, okay, this is, my business is better now because I went to the owner and we got better resources and different things.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, now I'm looking, where did I go? I went back to my prior COO because I knew she at least knew a lot of how I ran the business. So now it's like, okay, I didn't give her the offer letter was just marry me. Now the offer letter has, if you come into this again, this is what the expectations are. You don't have to sign that. You don't have to do anything, but this is what my expectations are. And she let me know, okay, but this is also what I'm looking for as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, okay, what you're looking for is not in opposition to what the business needs. It's not in opposition to my policies and procedures and whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a part of the correct benefits package. So it's like, okay, do business.
Yeah.
But then every day, just like the ebbs and flows of other businesses, some days we have days that are more up and some days that are more down. But at the end of the day, we're not trying to go under. We try to stay in the black.
Yeah.
Everything we do is to be profitable and to move forward. And then also Arabella, being a trainee, she's watching. Because now she has to watch and say, okay, if I wanted to become a wife, what's the best way to approach this?
Right.
Because she looks at me, I'm the CEO. She can never be the CEO. That I can't stress this enough. She can never be the CEO.
Yeah. There's certain traits and things she can learn from the CEO, but she can't become the CEO.
And there's nothing wrong with being a COO. It's a lot of people get COOs and CEOs confused because they're both very necessary. And if you looked at the traits of what either is, you might say the COO is more important in most situations. In most marriages, at least historically, they'll say a wife is the one that really runs the household, really makes the plans, really does a lot, and the man is typically the resource.
Right.
He might be you might say, I want a house built. Here's where you go to get all the stuff to build the house, but I need you have to build it. And it's like, all right, well, I have the plan, so now I just have to implement. So that's typically how that kind of situation would go. The man has the resources, or the man knows how to get the resources, or maybe doesn't, and then the woman, the wife, helps him get the resources, and the man actually implements that plan.
There's nothing wrong. Like, when you go to a job interview, you get your job description. Like, so these are the requirements for the job that I'm applying for. And in, like we kind of mentioned, hinted at earlier, sometimes there's going to be room for promotion because you could move, like I could move from wife to wife and mother. However, with that comes more responsibility because all of the same stuff, expectations from wife are still going to stay. They're not going to leave, but then I'm going to be promoted, so I'm going to get more responsibility added on top. Cause I'm gonna
but I wouldn't, as a CEO.
Right. His wouldn't necessarily change too much.
Because of my role as the top, I oversee. So we have 10 kids. My role doesn't change. Her role and responsibilities definitely do.
Right. So, and then also we talked about not necessarily knowing what I'll be like as a mother until it happens, because even though I am a stepmom, that's very different because she has a father and she still has a mother that's somewhat involved in her life. So I have very limited, is that the right word? Influence, well, not limited influence, limited, I don't know. I can't remember what I'm trying to say, but it's not the same as having my own child that came out of my body, where I grew her and birthed her and was there from day one, because with Arabella, I was not there from day one. So I missed some key parts of her life. So it was kind of like, you can kind of see a little bit of how I'll be, but it's still one of those, like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
Right. And once again, going back to that business model, a lot of people tend to go, they get in their head, I want to have kids, and then they have kids, but they don't understand how that affects their relationships with their spouse, their relationships with their, if they have any. So if you have one kid and you're like, that's fine, you decide to have 2, 3, 4, that's going to affect your relationships with everyone. How your relationships with your friends are affected, especially if your friends don't have kids. How your relationships with other family members are affected. How your relationships in your community, those are affected. People don't understand it. They go, I want to have kids. I watch programming all the time, and women are like, I want to have 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. Right? And they're 186, 200 pounds. And it's like, by the time that you have, I know one woman who's had 9 to 10 kids, and she looks fine. But that's not typical, especially in America, where most women are overweight. Most people are overweight, but most people are overweight. So if you're 186 pounds, well, I know like 186 pounds is heavy, right? Most women, if you said 200 pounds, that's different. Most men that are 200 pounds, I'm 250 something, right? Most men that are 200 pounds are considered bigger men. So there's women that outweigh the average man, even though the average man is usually overweight too. But there's a lot of women, small and shorter, 5'2", 5'3", 186 pounds. Oh, I hold it well. It's in my breast and my butt. You just look like a little bowling ball. You're like a fun little bowling ball, but a little bowling ball in a lot of situations. So it's like, you have to understand, if you start adding kids to that, the business going to thrive? Because as a CEO, I'm evaluating you, and you might say, well, I had this role and I have these kids. However, you can't control the outcomes. Of someone on this paper, on this offer letter, it said, I want you to stay attractive. I want you to stay in decent shape. I want you to say this. But when you go, okay, are you ready to be promoted to wife? Yep. Remember when you said, everything here still stays the same. You're just adding more responsibility. So guess what? Flip the page. I want you to stay active, and I want you to stay in as good a shape as you can. Doesn't mean that we don't understand you're going to put on weight with children or whatever the case may be, but it also means that you got to work. You got to try to get, because that's the expectation. It's not everyone's expectation though. That's what I'm saying. Each business is different. My business will look like that.
Right.
My business will look like, hey, baby, weight gain, all that kind of stuff, that's fine, or whatever the case may be. If you choose not to get on this program and start losing the weight and working to get back to a better place, you'll probably not be what you were, but whatever, but work to get better. If you choose not to do that, then you have to understand you're changing the parameters of our deal. Right. Which means that as the CEO, I'm like, all right, you're changing the parameters of that offer.
Because just like at a job, you get evaluated semi-annually, whatever. That could be part of your next evaluation. Yes, this, and then you have to see the pros and cons of everything that's going on. It's not just going to be that one aspect that's going to dictate whether or not you keep the job, you get a raise, whatever. It's going to play into it because maybe, yes, you have been slacking in this one area, but you've raised the bar in another area. So can we live with that? Is that okay?
What's going to move the business forward?
Right.
And so, for a lot, I don't want to speak for all men in this situation, but you got to also understand some CEOs outsource. We didn't talk about that one, but it's that when you're evaluating and stuff like that, if you're not doing the job, and so sometimes you have temps come in because you need a job done. So okay, Miss Mom, you're focused on this role, but as the wife role, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying you're a temp. I have a temp. I'm outsourcing. My business still need the business. I'm tasked with forwarding the mission. So if you're not able to do your job and increase. CEOs don't get now. A lot of CEOs will get evaluated by stakeholders and maybe a board of directors or something like that. We're talking just this is the rungs, right? But even if they're
potentially the owner,
that's a good one. But it's not. Okay. Policies and procedures, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you still don't outsource because I'm still tasked with running the business. So if the marriage is stagnant. If the marriage is not doing what it needs to do, if we're not moving forward, then we're not being profitable.
Right.
So if you're like, okay, in this arena, we're good. Like as far as being parents, we're good. But as far as being spouses, married, my husband and wife, which is the most profitable piece, we're not very good there. So what you do is you get consultants, therapists, and things like that. And you say, hey, this is what you need to do to get back on track. And then you work to get back on track. But once again, I'm not saying that sometimes things get outsourced because people don't look at the minutia and read the fine print and the details of these things. Mm-hmm. And it's another reason why a lot of people don't get married. Mm-hmm. And it's another reason people don't understand the business of marriage.
Right.
Like marriage is a business through and through. Like you cannot like somebody and hire them. You could look at somebody's credentials and say, this is honestly the best person for the job. They were arrogant. I didn't like their attitude. I didn't like this. They had this air about them. However, I know that they're going to take this business to the next level, right? So as far as me and Faith are concerned as being married, or you're looking at somebody, you can say, I might not like you all the time. I might not like these traits about you. But if I want to have 5 kids because I want to build a legacy, right? You're going to be the best mother that I could think of based off these traits. I don't need you to be as good of a wife because that's how I want to run my business this way. So as long as you just do break even with that, but you're an excellent mother and I know that you're going to train these children to be the best versions of them and continue my legacy, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Some people are like that. I'm not. I have very particular things for me and myself. It's more of an equivalency. That's why I'm a hands-on CEO because sometimes I had to come down. And then I have to, make sure things are done. And then I hear from my COO about things that need to be changed or whatever the case may be, and then we work on that. But a lot of people, they just don't look at marriage as a business, or they look at it as solely a business without heart, where everything's about the economics of it.
Yeah, because everybody can probably, well, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people probably have a job that they worked, that they hated their boss, they hated everything about it, they only did it because they needed money, and it's kind of like... And that's not what you want to do, obviously, with a marriage. You want to like your boss. You want to like
not
what
boss.
you're doing.
I'm not. No.
Sorry, CEO.
Don't call me. I'm not the boss.
You want to.
The owner's the boss.
Yes.
Because I still report to the owner.
Right. So you want to like what you're doing. Is basically what I was getting at. You want to like the job. You want to like everything about it, like the people that you work with, and your responsibilities. You want to like those things. So. That helps, obviously, but it's like he said, it's not necessary for something to work. And that's where because we actually were trying to do this the other day, and we got into like a whole thing because I said that love was important for a marriage, and you more or less disagreed.
No.
Okay, what did
no,
you? No,
we're doing it again on camera. No. I said it's not what marriages have historically been founded on.
There we go. Okay.
That's totally different than what you said.
But you agree it's important?
Yes.
Okay. What?
Once again, you didn't read the offer. No, yes, it's important, but it's not. I don't even want to say it's necessarily the most important thing. I think it ties. I said this before in another video. It ties everything together.
It does.
But I can love you. Remember, we got divorced. Remember how we got back together?
Because you said you still loved me.
I know. Oh, God. I said I never stopped loving you.
Okay, I'm not sure what the difference is between still loving me and not stopping. Because they're both the same thing. But anyway,
back at the ranch, and you said, wait a minute, because you didn't understand how I could have done and left and all that stuff and still loved you. Because it wasn't about freaking love, man. It was about more than that. It was about me looking at resumes and stuff, and I'm like, oh, well, shoot, it's about different stuff. Yeah. So if you based off love alone, it made no sense. That's why it shocked you to hear that. That's why I said it's not that people get married for love and 5 years later get divorced over top 2 reasons people get divorced.
Money and kids.
Now, typically, as you get older, the goal is to make more money. Mm-hmm. A lot of the goal typically when you get married is to have kids after you're married. So this stuff you can't even really see beforehand. So it's like, okay, if you marry the wrong person, and now you're just like, okay, I never saw how they lived. I don't know how they are with kids. I don't know how they are with finances. And this stuff happens. That's not about love. That's about the business of marriage. We're not going to get anywhere if you're spending all the money.
Right.
If we have one bank account and I find every time I turn around, a couple thousand is missing because you out here buying shoes and bags. And I'm like, the mortgage, the rent, the cars, we can't pay for that. Well, I saw something on sale that I wanted. Or the kids, or I put them in private school because you didn't talk to me. Why are we doing this? I bought them these clothing because they need. No, it doesn't work. It's literally going in because the vision is driven by me. This is the vision. This is what we're doing. And then you're doing something else. You're working against me. Mm-hmm. You're not working with me.
Right.
Or if we can get into more about like the CEO's role and stuff like that. But if I'm pointing you in the wrong direction, if I'm giving you a bad, cloudy vision, if I'm like, yeah, we're going to get here and we can have all this stuff, but in order for me to do it, I got to sell a bunch of drugs. I got to commit fraud. I got to do all these types of things. That's not good at being a good CEO. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that you're doing things appropriately and in the right way. But love is not going to be the deciding factor. Love might be why some people stay. But there's people who are in abusive relationships, and when it's not abusive, oh, he or she loves me. There's people who are in relationships that are sexless. Oh, he or she loves me, But it's like, well, if you were to quantify what love looks like, what does it look like? To me, love looks like action. So if you love me, there's no question about me that you love me. So you're going to do the things that I need you to do, that I want you to do, and I need you to do. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can say you love me, but I don't believe that. So I don't believe that love is the I believe it connects everything, because me loving you means that I'm going to treat you with respect. It means I'm going to go over things with you differently. But when it comes down to it, I didn't remarry you for love. The first time, it was more so for love. The second time, it was more so for the business of marriage. It was me looking, going, you were prior COO. I don't want to have nobody else come in here and potentially mess up my business. I already got a trainee, and she's getting older, and so many years, she's going to be ready to strike out on her own. I can't train. I can't be COO and CEO. And once again, daughter's not being raised to be CEO, because that's not her role. If I had a son, he wouldn't be raised to be COO. He'd be raised to be CEO.
Well, right. And then that's the other thing. Like, you hear a lot of women go, I am both the father and the mother. When they're single moms, they say, I'm the mom and the dad. So in that case, you're the CEO and the COO. But you just said something very nice, very interesting that I want to point out. Guys don't typically do that when they're a single father or someone who has because
we're still the CEO.
You're only the CEO. You can't necessarily train someone to be a COO.
We do not change. No, that's not our job. I can't train my daughter. When you hear me talk to Arabella, I give her the game about the world, and I give her the game about the influences of the females that could be around her and the influence of the males. Mm-hmm. But I'm not training her to be we didn't get into that. But I'm not training her to be a wife because I can't.
Yeah.
If I had a son, I could train him to be a husband based on what I've learned on my own, but I can't train Arabella to be a wife because I'm not a wife. And I couldn't tell her the things to do or not do per se, because my business is going to be different than whoever she probably chooses to marry.
It has to be based on this is what works for us, but you might come across something that.
But there's basic, totally general things that she should know.
Yes.
That's across the board with men.
Yeah.
That if she gets married, that these are things you can know, but then you have to learn to fit this role.
That can be
You gotta know you're gonna have to fit his program.
Yeah.
And people might disagree with me, but that's how I'm raising my. You're gonna have to fit his program, but his program has to be correct. And the fact of the matter is, she has an old school CEO who's around, who's going to be looking at this young whippersnapper CEO and saying, this business is going to survive or not. And it's not based off I'm telling him what to do. It's because I can look at it and tell, and then also understand that this is probably going to be the best position for you. That's where we're all interconnected. So we have to look at it like it's not like I wake up with faith and I go, okay, COO, we deal with each other. We have schedules. We all have things that we're doing and that we work on all the time and stuff like that. So I say, she's like, hey, this is what I'm doing today. This is what you're doing today. This is what I need on my schedule. Can you do this? I might have to rearrange something to fit her schedule, vice versa. Arabella, whatever the case may be, it's all business. It's all, but it's love. Like, so when we say don't take it personally, it's only business. No, it's all business, but the love is included in this because it's what keeps everything together. But we have to understand our roles, we have to understand our responsibilities, and we have to make sure that we are staying as much in our lanes as we can. Right, we can't overstep. You cannot overstep in a CEO role unless I'm hurt or something's wrong with me, and you can take over my responsibilities for a bit. If you're hurt, that's it. But during the day-to-day, daily practices, you cannot do certain things that I do because you will not do them to fit our business.
Right. Yeah, and you just have to be okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with that because I feel like a lot of times it's just one of those things that people just want more than they, and it's crazy because I wouldn't want all the responsibility of you and me. That's all. I have enough responsibility on my own.
Right. All right, everybody. So that was a little bit scary. You might have to listen to that one or two more times. And speaking of listening to it, we better get some more subscribers and likes and stuff like that because we're about to start ramping things up again and changing some things. But we kind of fell off because we weren't getting the kind of engagement that we want. We weren't getting the kind of engagement that we need. So we got to start acting crazy and being controversial. Mm-hmm. We're going to say some things and we're going to do something. We tried to be nice at first. Yeah. We're trying to be nice and sweet and cordial. And then we're going to get to the real. We're going to ruffle some feathers. And then we're going to make sure that people are getting their eyes on this content because it's necessary. Mm-hmm. You need to know. You don't have to agree with it.
Right.
But you should know it.
We want you to comment and tell us you don't agree and open up dialogue.
And then maybe we can get you on. Yeah. And then we can talk to you about why you don't agree, where you're at, whether you're married, whether you're not, whether you're still an old trainee, or whether you've been a prior CEO or COO or whatever the case may be. Or maybe, oh man, we're not talking about the interns, the wifey interns, but we're not going to talk about that right now. We got to get going. We got things. We have business to handle.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
We'll see you guys later. Make sure that you. Oh my goodness.
You go first.
Is it?
Yes.
Does it maintain your justice? And keep your face strong.
And maintain your justice.
I've been saying it so much by myself. I've been putting more content out than you.
Bye.
That's